Week 9 is on the horizon. We've got primetime matchups in College Station, Madison. We've got a surprising top 25 game taking place in MetLife Stadium this week. And can Vandy pull off another huge upset? This is Always Talking Ball. Tyler Noe, Lance Barton. Jam-packed show tonight. But first, we've got some programming news starting next week. Lance, do you want to tell the people what's going on?
We are going next week because we know the playoff conversation is going to be heating up. Because of the 12-team playoff, there's a lot more teams and a lot more fan bases that are still alive, baby. This regular season that everybody thought was going to be a little more meaningless because of so many games, no, it's a lot more meaningful to a lot more teams, and it's college football, and it's a lot more meaningful for us. So we're going to 3 episodes starting next week. What days of the week are we going, Ty?
We will be releasing on audio on Apple and Spotify Monday, Wednesday, Friday. YouTube's will be up late the night before, and in some cases maybe the afternoon before if you're lucky. But the people reached out. They wanted more Always Talking Ball, and we always want to talk ball more. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to do it for the month of February leading up to Thanksgiving, probably around Conference Championship week, and then, we'll go from there. We'll see how the reception is, but we're excited about it, man. Like I said, big show tonight. We got a bunch of games we got to talk about. We got some upset alerts. We got a ton of best bets that we are going to give out.
We're going to spray the board tonight, folks. I mean,
yes,
if you don't love the board, you make the board love you.
Our boy Lance needs it. He needs to hit on some bets this week. So, as always, we're sponsored by Home Field Apparel. You know the deal. Go to their website, look at some gear, pick it out, go to the checkout, type in promo code ATB15, get 15% off. Like I said last episode, we got some hoodies that are coming. We'll be rocking those on here soon because it's nice. It's going to be hoodie weather. I know we got some great weather going on in October. It's really strange right now, but it's great for football, right? So
absolutely,
let's dive right into our ATB marquee matchups. We're going to start in College Station, 7:30 Eastern on ABC Saturday night. Got LSU going on the road, playing Texas A&M. Texas A&M favored by 2.5. Underdogs in SEC conference games. We mentioned this last week. Underdogs in SEC conference games are 22-9 against the spread so far this season. That's the best mark of any conference. Home favorites in SEC conference games are 2-12 against the spread this year. I don't know what's going on. That's the worst conference mark for home favorites through 8 weeks since the Conference USA back in 2020. And it's tied for the worst mark in the SEC since 2008. And if you're wondering how Brian Kelly fares on a road trip where he's going back-to-back 2 games in a row on the road, in his college career, he's 13-5 straight up. He's 14-3-1 against the spread in that second game. And this fits that mold. And the last time he lost a game was Central Michigan back in 2006 when he was a coach for the old Chippewas there. So LSU going on the road. I know Kyle Field's a tough environment. I was there back on August 31st when Notre Dame came into town, and it's a tough environment for sure. And the home team has won the last 7 games in this series. And again, the tight spread tells you this is going to be as some people like to call it, this is going to be a war.
I knew you were about to say that. Yeah, man, this is going to be it's an interesting contrast to styles because, A&M, they've been fantastic defensively under Mike Elko. That defensive line is nasty. That front 7 in general overall is just nasty. They get a lot of tackles for a loss and live in opponents' backfields, and they really haven't faced, though, a passing offense yet that can exploit the secondary for A&M, and the secondary of the defense. Secondary is the weakness of the defense. Now, I don't know if it's some glaring weakness by any means, but compared to the defensive line, it's nothing like the defensive line. I would think probably the best passing offense they faced would be, Arkansas? I guess could be last week, Mississippi State. Because, Notre Dame doesn't throw the football very well. Missouri hasn't thrown the football very well this year. Arkansas doesn't. They want to run the ball a little bit more with Taylor Green and Jaquindon Jackson. So
and maybe Florida.
Yeah, exactly. Probably maybe Florida.
Basically, we're saying they haven't faced a really good passing defense.
Right, a passing offense. And
Passing offense,
yeah, and Garrett Nussmeier right now is the best quarterback in the Southeastern Conference. He has been efficient. He can make every single throw on the field. He can make NFL-type throws. They've got really good receivers there for LSU. LSU right now has the 8th-ranked passing offense in the country. And their offensive line, going against this A&M defensive line, LSU is number 2 in the country in sacks allowed. So matchup-wise, you would have to think that this favors LSU because of the style of these two teams. But I want to talk about right now, like we mentioned on our last episode, Tyler, how the last couple of episodes, how LSU's defense, like after the Ole Miss game, we talked about LSU's defense, how they stepped up. The last episode, we talked about how LSU's defense stepped up again. Whit Weeks is probably right now the best defensive player in America the last 2 weeks, and middle linebacker for LSU. I actually went and looked at it. The last 2 weeks, LSU has had 9 sacks and 12 tackles for a loss the last 2 games against Ole Miss and at Arkansas. That's 2 quality opponents that they piled those numbers up against. So if that defense shows up to College Station, they're going to win. Because I still think LSU's offense and Nussmeier is good enough and these receivers are good enough that if LSU's defense shows up and holds their end of the bargain up and plays really well like they have the last 2 weeks, man, they're going to be a problem to deal with. Now, Nussmeier in the past has had issues turning the football over. So now you're on the road at night, 100,000+ people in the stands. You got to think, I know LSU's offensive line is really good, but you got to think Nick Scorton and Shamar Turner, Shamar Stewart, some of that defensive line, they're going to get some pressure on Nussmeier, don't you think?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, you got to hope for LSU that Nussmeier's not going to revert back to, again, he tries to fit the ball in tight windows, that he's not going to throw any picks in this game or have any back-breaking type turnovers. But now flip it on the other side of the ball. Connor Wigman. He looked really good against Missouri. He did. His first game back against Mizzou, he looked great. But since then, I mean, he hasn't looked necessarily as have they only played 1 game since Mizzou? Was it Mississippi State? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yep.
So he didn't look as good last week overall against Mississippi State, but still, Wigman's got a ton of potential. The receivers played really well against Mizzou, but Texas A&M wants to run the football. With those 2 tailbacks they've got. I mean, they've got 2 stud tailbacks, and they want to run the rock. LSU, again, the last 2 weeks, against 2 teams like Ole Miss and Arkansas that run the ball well, they've held up fine. If A&M can't run the football, I don't know that Connor Wigman is – I think he's talented enough to do it, but I just don't know that A&M's passing game is good enough to really exploit LSU's pass defense. Because, again, I think LSU's weakness on probably their whole team is their secondary. And, I mean, Ole Miss had some deep shots that they, Trey Harris dropped that touchdown pass early on in the game. That was the deep ball. Jackson Dart still played well and threw the ball well against LSU. But I just don't know that matchup-wise how much this favors Texas A&M. I mean, this is one of those classic examples of most things that I find with A&M that I'm trying to say that, like, I would favor them in this matchup as far as either O-line versus D-line, pass deep, all that stuff. Only thing I can come up with is Kyle Field at night. And now, again, that matters in college football. Home fields, especially the ones with 100,000+ people in the stands at night, that does make a difference. Absolutely, it does. Ask LSU with their record and Brian Kelly's record at night in Tiger Stadium. Mm-hmm. So if LSU doesn't have multiple turnovers and make a bunch of mistakes, I think they win this game. If Texas A&M can force Nussmeier into a couple of picks and steal a couple of possessions, I think A&M wins this game. I know I'm not your power rating person or anything like that, but I think the wrong team's favored in this game. And I like LSU, and I think LSU wins the game.
Yeah, power ratings probably agree with you there. They want a couple I've seen have LSU 2.5 points ahead on a neutral. So, I mean, with home field. I mean, it's probably a pick 'em. It should be a pick 'em. So
EA Sports EA Sports probably made the line.
Yeah, I'm sure they did. It's crazy that the winner of this game, I mean, is in the driver's seat for going to Atlanta on December 7th, and that's something we weren't expecting. I mean, I know if you think back on the SEC preview show we did, I actually had Georgia versus LSU, and after the first couple weeks and how they looked, even though they hadn't had a conference loss, I was not feeling great about that, and the way Texas had looked and everything. And
I mean, LSU's peaking right now.
I know, and I didn't have A&M really anywhere on my radar. To me, this game it's a pretty simple one for me. It comes down to, I think both the teams are even, aside from the quarterback position, and I'm going to take the better quarterback in this game, even on the road. And I know he hasn't really. I mean, he played USC. It was a neutral field. Hasn't really gone on the road quite yet to like a hostile environment, because obviously Jaden Daniels played all year last year. Correct. I mean, was Nussmeier, did he play any road games like a year before that? I mean, has he stepped up at all on the road and started a game that you know of?
Nussmeier?
Yeah.
Not that I know of, no. Like, I know he played in the bowl game against Wisconsin.
Okay.
He played in the SEC championship game against Georgia when they were getting killed. Or no, when they were killed like a couple years ago, I think maybe when they were killing some, I can't remember. He played some in the SEC championship game against Georgia two years ago when Georgia was killing them. But no, so far he has played. Now, he's played in some tough environments this year. He did play at Williams-Brice when we saw how that place was rocking, and Kyle Kennard and Dylan Stewart and that pass rush was hitting him and getting after him in that game. And then at Arkansas, Fayetteville at night. I mean, that's not Kyle Field at night, but that's a tough environment in the battle for the Golden Boot. So he's played in some, but probably not what he's going to be facing this Saturday night.
Yeah, and just think about the common opponent that they have now with Arkansas.
Yeah, and
the battle that A&M had with them on a neutral field, winning by 4, and then LSU goes in and they win by 24 at Arkansas.
Yep. And
so that kind of spoke something to me a little bit. So I got to take the better quarterback in this game.
Yeah. Good. And a good point you just made on the Arkansas deal there. Like, Arkansas's biggest weakness is their pass defense. And LSU obviously can exploit that with Nussmeier and these receivers in this overall passing game. Again, A&M, their strength is their defensive line and running the football on offense. LSU has done fine against those. Their offensive line, again, is second in the country at allowing sacks, and they can exploit A&M's secondary. If A&M can get to Nussmeier, because Nussmeier's not a running quarterback, he's a little more stationary, obviously, your more traditional pocket passer. They can. I mean, that's the key, man. If they can get to him, I do think that it's a chance that he could throw some picks, because he's been apt to do that in his career.
If that LSU offensive line lives up to their preseason hype and they stand up, I mean, they've got Kyron Lacey, they got Aaron Anderson, CJ Daniels. They've all had great seasons. They got Mason Taylor at tight end.
Yeah.
They've all had great seasons. I'm taking LSU on the money line in this game, plus 115.
Nice.
I already made it a bet. So that's my first best bet of the episode. I know you probably don't have a pick in the game, but if you had to pick, who you taking?
No,
LSU?
I told you we're spraying the board, bro. I got LSU plus 2.5. Let's ride.
Okay.
I'm LSU plus 2.5. The last thing I'll say, like, on this game is I am excited to see. What my thoughts were on Connor Wigman before the season. I'm excited to see him in this spot, in this matchup, with a couple of games under his belt. I still think the guy's got a lot of talent. I know that most of the world, the last time that most of the world watched him this year was obviously that Notre Dame game that you were at, where he was just trash.
Yeah.
And he redeemed himself nicely against Mizzou, played okay against Mississippi State. But this is a big spot. This is a big spot for him on prime time, when the whole country is going to be watching to show what he's got.
Yep. Next up, I'm glad we decided to do our podcast at the time we did, recorded the time we did, because, 30 minutes before we started recording here, news breaks, and Brady Cook looks like he's doubtful for Mizzou's game at Alabama, 3:30 on Saturday on ABC. The line was 13.5 Alabama. It's moved up to about 16.5, 17, because behind Brady Cook is not much. It's Drew Pine.
Oof.
And I know he won 9 games at Notre Dame one season, but that probably says a lot more about the rest of Notre Dame and Marcus Freeman than it does Drew Pine, because he was not great last year at Arizona State, and he was not great last week when Brady Cook went out with that injury against Auburn. Obviously, they fell into that, was it 17-6 hole? Is that right?
17-3.
17-3.
Dude, I had Auburn buddies texting me going, this guy is awful.
And talking about didn't have no idea who he was.
No, they didn't. They didn't. Like, some of them did.
Yeah.
Our boy Cole knew that Drew Pine obviously came from It was at Notre Dame at one point. He was at Arizona State last year. So he's been a little bit of a journeyman. But Drew Pine was one of those that I don't know how much this is true or not, man. But when he transferred, I remember people talking about that there's some specific, maybe like graduate degree or something that, like, you have some of these guys that are sticking around longer in college football that. Well, we talked about it with Notre Dame. Some people are transferring to Notre Dame because getting a degree from Notre Dame is a huge deal. Like people that don't have really NFL futures or whatever. Like obviously Drew Pine does not have some NFL future. But yeah, he was transferred to Mizzou apparently for some like degree or something for a graduate degree. And now he's thrown into the fire and plays against Auburn last week. And now he's going on the road to Tuscaloosa.
Yeah.
So
I mean, think about that 22 Notre Dame team that, I mean, with him and Tyler Buckner. But yeah, this game in Tuscaloosa at 3:30. Funny, not funny, but fun stat for you here. Since 2012, after playing Tennessee, Alabama is 12-0 straight up and 10-2 against the spread. So a lot for Kalen DeBoer to live up to here.
Yeah, that's I did not know that. That's interesting.
But I'm gonna let you take the reins here on this one. Obviously, you've got a handle and a little bit of a pulse on what's all going on down in Tuscaloosa. We don't have to get in on all that. That's what our new Wednesday episodes are for next week. But just give us what you think is going to happen in this game now that we didn't have much time to prepare for Brady Cook being out.
Yeah, well, what's going on in Tuscaloosa? It's a shit show off the field and really on the field too. But as far as Alabama right now, they're banged up. A lot of teams are at this time of year. But Alabama's played several games in a row. They played Georgia. They've played a tough defensive type team in South Carolina. They've played. I never thought I'd ever say this. Played a tough team like Vandy. Played on the road at Tennessee. So, yeah, they're banged up right now. They've got multiple guys out. It's going to be out in secondary. Keon Sabb at safety, who's been one of the best players on Alabama's defense, who transferred in from Michigan. He played the majority of the Tennessee game with a broken foot. He's out right now. So you're going to have some new guys in on defense for Bama in the secondary, which is not good against, Luther Burden III and Theo Weiss and Mookie Cooper and that wide receiver crew for Missouri.
Those poor wide receivers.
Yeah. And so if Brady Cook, like they said there's still a chance he could play, but they're saying it is the words they're using are highly doubtful. So obviously if he does play, he's not going to be 100% or even near it. And Bama's got some receivers that are banged up as well. Right now. So, I mean, this has to be a game, man, that Alabama needs to run the football. A&M ran all over Missouri a few weeks ago. Missouri sitting here these are two teams. I mean, I know it doesn't seem like it, but these are two teams that are very still alive in this 12-team playoff race. If Mizzou would go into Tuscaloosa and win this game, then they are absolutely one of those teams that's going to be talked about as far as, okay, can they run the table the rest of the way? And a one-loss Mizzou, like while nobody thinks that's going to happen, but still, a one-loss Mizzou is getting in the 12-team playoff. That's happening. And if they were to go in and win in Tuscaloosa this weekend as 16.5-point dogs against a reeling Alabama team, yeah, this is a huge opportunity and a huge moment for Mizzou. Defensively, the numbers tell you that Mizzou is one of the better defenses in the country. But again, schedule-wise, the teams that they've played, the best offense that they've played is Texas A&M. And you saw what Texas A&M did to them in College Station. So, again, A&M ran the football on them. Alabama has two really good running backs a quarterback who's the best athlete on the field with his feet, and a mauling type offensive line. That's exactly what they should be doing every game, but especially this game. And I expect to see Bama run the football more with Justice Haynes and Jam Miller in this game. It's ridiculous that those two guys have not combined for 70 rushing yards in a single SEC game yet this year. Like, if you're trying to search in yourself at Alabama right now and figure out what we're doing wrong on offense, that would be number one.
Mm-hmm.
I've got this offensive line, and I've got these two tailbacks, and Jalen Milroe at quarterback with his feet, and this is all we're doing, running the football? Yeah, no. That is ridiculous. That's got to change, and I think it changes this week. As far as, like I said, Mizzou defensively has been solid this year. But I just got to be honest. I don't know how much time that, if I knew that Brady Cook was playing in this game, we'd talk a lot more about other things as far as the possibility of, like, seriously, if Brady Cook was playing in this game, I already told you this week, I said, I think they've got every bit of a chance to come into Tuscaloosa and win this because of such a huge game for them. Like the
potential that he brings. Like, he hasn't proved it this year on the field, but he
did last year.
Has potential. Yeah. And I
got good feet. He can
higher
move.
ceiling than obviously Drew Pine has.
Right, exactly. I think you said it earlier today when we talked on the phone, and I had other buddies that said the same thing. If the Brady Cook that played last year showed up in Tuscaloosa this week with those receivers against a banged-up Alabama secondary and against an Alabama secondary who's already not very good anyway, that could have been very interesting. But with Drew Pine, dude, I just – if Alabama loses to Drew Pine, then all of the stuff that you're hearing right now, like, if Alabama finds a way to lose this game, y'all, in all seriousness, you will have never seen a more toxic college football environment than the one you will see in the fourth quarter and at the end of that game. Stuff you see in movies will be going on in Tuscaloosa.
I know you said that, you're this season's kind of a wash for you.
No, the season's not a wash.
But whatever happens.
My thoughts
this season,
on Kalen DeBoer is a wash.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Just kind of like whatever happens, it's not going to change your thoughts on him.
No.
I mean, but would a loss to Drew Pine change your thoughts on him?
Not on him. No, not on him. Seriously, I'm
trying to dig for something here.
No. Like, again, the culture that's going on this year, I just don't think that at any point this year this was ever Kalen DeBoer's team, man. It just wasn't. The situation of him taking over in January, where that stupid 30-day rule where players can have free to transfer for 30 days and you're not allowed to go get your own players yourself type deal. This 100% was completely held together by the senior leadership of Alabama, who are all obviously Nick Saban's players. And I'm not going to judge him, me personally. The rest of the Alabama nation is, absolutely. But me personally, I'm not judging him off this year no matter what happens the rest of this season. After this season, you damn right. I'll be judging him for sure. But
they've got Drew Pine at quarterback. They've got the receivers. Nate Noel is out for this game too, so they got Marcus Carroll back there. The one thing I'm just looking for, I just want to see just how Alabama looks. I want to see how they come out. Obviously, after last week, I just want to see some type of improvement. Obviously, heading into the bye week and going in to face LSU in 2 weeks. Just want to see Milroe step into some throws. I want to see him make some passes, hit some guys. I know they're going to take deep shots, and he tosses it up there sometimes, and his guys make plays. I want to see just some good routes drawn up for the wide receivers and see if he can hit them. And I don't want it to sound like it's like a practice game. I mean, it's still an SEC football game, but it's like, and it sounds like I'm like, letting my guard down for them. Like, I don't want them to let their guard down on defense just because Drew Pine's out there, right? I want their defense to play like Drew Pine is out there. And I mean, we saw what Auburn did to them last year before Brady Cook came back in the game, or last week before Brady Cook came back in the game. You have to be looking for Alabama to show some improvement on the defensive side of the ball, especially against his quarterback.
Yeah, I think Pine will be better than he was last week, just because you know how that works, man. When you're the guy all week long and getting all the reps with the ones and the game plans derived around you, he's played enough football that like he's not very good. We all know that, and that's not really fair to him that he's being thrown out there to start in a game like this. I mean, that's not really, but still, like I think that he will be much better than as opposed to when you're sitting there in the middle of the game, you're not. I mean, obviously Brady Cook is their guy. He's the guy at quarterback. He's never thinking I know that stupid stuff, but while you're one play away from being the starter, like, dude, he's not over there at all on that bench thinking he's coming into play.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden he gets thrown out there.
Yeah.
So I do think he'll be a little bit better, and it's good that he's got a really good offensive coordinator and Kirby Moore and the receivers that he's got, but still. That's the last thing I want to touch on in this game is just an interesting little nugget here. The defensive coordinator for Mizzou, Corey Batoon, they got him from South Alabama.
Mm-hmm.
He was Kane Womack, the Alabama defensive coordinator right now. Kane Womack was the head coach at South Alabama. His defensive coordinator at South Alabama was Corey Batoon. So obviously there's a lot of familiarity there between the defenses and the schemes and how they want to do things, their tendencies, all that stuff. And then Kirby Moore. Eli Drinkwitz got Kirby Moore from Fresno. Kirby Moore originally started out in his coaching there out at Fresno under Kalen DeBoer. Kirby Moore was the wide receivers coach under Kalen DeBoer at Fresno before Kalen DeBoer went to Washington. When Kalen DeBoer went to Washington, he really wanted to bring Kirby Moore with him. And Jeff Tedford, when he took the job at Fresno, made Kirby Moore the offensive coordinator. He had a lot of success that year at Fresno. Obviously, the rest is history. Drink brought him to Mizzou. This last year, when Kalen DeBoer got the head coaching job at Alabama, when they were talking about who was going to be his OC if Ryan Grubb were to leave, a lot of people threw out the name Kirby Moore because Kalen DeBoer loves him. So just a nugget there. There's definitely some familiarity there between the staffs.
Yeah, I wonder if we haven't heard anything. I mean, and if you look at their depth chart, it's just Brady Cook and Drew Pine. Like maybe does Drink have some sort of secret weapon on the roster that he's going to throw out there or something? Who knows? You never know with Drinkwitz. So
agreed.
So our first game was at 7:30 on ABC. That game was at 3:30 on ABC. So they got a big triple header Saturday on ABC because our next game is at noon on ABC. And this is a top 25 matchup. I should have looked it up. I'm not sure how many times Notre Dame versus Navy has been a top 25 matchup in the 94 times they've played or whatever it is. Notre Dame comes in 13-point favorites. It's at MetLife Stadium. So it's at a NFL stadium. They played at NFL Stadium last week when they played against Georgia Tech. Notre Dame is a favorite when playing at a neutral site, has been absolutely money in the history they've been doing this. Since 1990, they're 29-2 straight up and 21-10 against the spread at neutral site games as a favorite. 2 losses, though. 2016 Navy, 2010 Navy.
Okay.
Typically, they don't make the trip to Annapolis. They usually play these games at a neutral site. And later, in a month here, they're going to play Army on a Saturday night, late November, in Yankee Stadium. So they try to make these like spectacles because they are just such storied rivalries. I mean, I remember back in, 07, 08, when I think Notre Dame had won 43 in a row against Navy. And Navy came in there. And I think Charlie Weiss was the coach at the time. And that was probably the beginning of the downfall for Charlie Weiss. It was probably a couple years after he won his biggest game in a 34-31 loss against USC. That was his biggest win of his career. So, interesting matchup here, man. Navy is running out of shotgun about 45% of the time this year, which is more than they ever have, I want to say. And Blake Horvath is, you expect the numbers that he's got as an option quarterback because they still do a ton of triple option. Don't get me wrong. And he's got over 600 yards rushing. He's got 10 rushing touchdowns. But Navy's quarterback, guys, has 888 yards passing and 10 touchdowns passing. And it's just something we haven't seen in a while. I mean, probably since Roger Staubach, right?
Yeah.
Navy quarterback.
It's an awesome offense to watch. It's unique. You don't see it ever. It's so hard to prepare for. I mean, the triple option alone is tough to prepare for because you just don't see it often. And they can run it in their sleep. The discipline that the service academies have with everything, their blocking, all of their assignments, like it's just, it's exactly what you think a, military academy would be. And then now you throw on top of it that they're multiple on offense and can do multiple things like that, like throw the football and be in shotgun and run this complicated offense that you just never see. I'm interested to see how this goes, man. I really am. I'm as intrigued with this one because I obviously respect the Irish defense a lot and respect the Irish running game on offense a lot. And normally what blows up a triple option is if you can penetration on defense. And obviously Notre Dame's got the defensive lineman and the defensive front to be able to do that. But the wrinkle now that Navy has is what's intriguing. Because you got to imagine, man, there's still some things that Navy hasn't shown that they're going to probably break out in this game because they have to. They've got to do some things. I don't think they can just line up and just run the triple option and do the exact same things that they've done and win this game.
They haven't played a lot of really good offenses, though. They played Memphis. Memphis put up 44 on them, but Memphis' defense was just, Swiss cheese. I almost said cottage cheese. Swiss cheese that day.
Probably cottage cheese, yeah.
Memphis. They put up 56, and Notre Dame's defense is not going to be Memphis's defense.
No, and Memphis just gave up, I think, like 40-something to North Texas as well.
Yeah.
The thing for me, man, is Navy. They've been bad against the run. They're not good at defending the run. They're just not. They're ranked in the 90s this year at defending the run, and they're not playing like big time rushing type teams. They've not faced what they're going to face this week with Notre Dame, with that offensive line and the running backs and that they're going to get, and even Riley Leonard out of the run game too. That is where, again, for Navy to win this game, I think that Notre Dame has to turn the ball over. It'll be one of those type deals where most of the time when you see an underdog of double digits get a dub against a team, like this, that's normally what happens. The other team makes a few mistakes. You capitalize on those mistakes. Navy too thrives on offense of keeping the football away from you. They're very efficient. They run a lot of clock. They don't give you a lot of possessions. They make it to where you have to be efficient on offense. You have to make your possessions count. It's very similar to like what Vandy did to Alabama. You better score on every possession because they're eating 7 or 8 minutes off the clock on every one of their possessions, and they're scoring on top of it. I don't know that Navy can do that on offense in this game. So I actually think it could be the flip side, that Notre Dame runs the football, runs clock, and keeps Navy's offense off the field.
Yeah, you won't have much worry about that Alabama game starting on time at 3:30 because I think this game is going to be a 3-hour game. Whoever gets the coin toss, I mean, if whoever wins the coin toss, Notre Dame wins it, they got to take the ball. You got to put the pressure on. You got to make that team play from behind.
Yep.
They got to run the ball. You have Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price back there, both averaging over 6 yards a carry.
Yep.
Like Riley Leonard's averaging over 6 yards a carry. The thing that gets Navy and Army in trouble in these games with Notre Dame is just the size and really just the talent. Navy doesn't play teams with just the talent Notre Dame has, and they can get away with it. And they can get away with it. Sometimes they can catch teams like Notre Dame off guard, or Memphis. They don't have as much talent as Memphis, right? But just the fact that they're so sound in what they do gives them a leg up. And they're so disciplined. They don't make a lot of penalties. I mean, we talk about that with all the troops, right? Just so disciplined. And Brian Newberry over there has got himself a team. He's also got probably the best beard in college football right now as far as head coaches go.
He looks like he should coach Navy.
Exactly. And I don't have any thought on the spread in this game. I think Notre Dame is going to get the job done because right now every game is an elimination game for Notre Dame. And they got Army and Navy coming up. and both those teams play Notre Dame. They can, I won't say afford to lose, but if Army and Navy drop games in Notre Dame, it's not going to be any skin off their back, especially in the American championship race. So
yeah, I think it's important for Navy to keep this one tight. And I'm not talking about like 3 point. Like if they keep this thing within the number, I think it helps them out a lot as far as later on when you're looking at that group of 5 team, if they were to go on and win the American, like if they go out there Saturday and lose, 27-3, 31-0, and they look like they are just completely inferior. That could be tough for them as far as looking at it in a large later on as far as that group of 5 bunch. But teams that Navy have played this year, Bucknell, awful. Temple, awful. UAB, yeah, awful. Air Force, worst they've been in years. Charlotte, terrible. Memphis is the only team they've played that is worth anything. And Memphis is solid. Obviously, Memphis is really good at that level. And that was a 56-44 game. So like you said, I think Notre Dame's defense can slow them down a little, can at least slow them down. And I don't know that Navy can stop Notre Dame's run game. So I like Notre Dame in this game to win. At the moment, I know I'm spraying the board. I'm not going to take Notre Dame to cover yet, but I've actually thought about them covering because I just don't know that Navy's going to be able to stop them, man.
Yeah, they matched up last year in week 0 in Dublin, and that was about the only game I bet on Notre Dame. They were 20.5-point favorites at that time, and they won 42-3.
Yep.
So, it's tough anytime these two teams match up, but again, we'll know by probably the second quarter how the game is trending because if Navy comes out and they take 8 minutes off the clock right away and they march down and they get a touchdown, that's not going to bode well for Notre Dame. So
no, I agree.
We'll see. Last game we're talking about in our marquee matchups is another top 20 matchup. Illinois going all the way out to Eugene to face the number 1 Oregon Ducks, who are favored by 21 points in this game. 3:30 on CBS. As a double-digit favorite, Dan Lanning is 22-1 straight up and 15-8 against the spread. With Oregon, he covers by over 4 points per game. Under Lanning, Oregon has played 2 games as 14-point favorites off extended rest, which they have 8 days of rest because they played that game at Purdue last week. They won both those games by a combined score of 79-19. So,
good Lord.
Favorites of 20 points in ranked matchups, 24-1 straight up. All the trends pointing towards Oregon getting a dub in this game. Can they cover? Not sure. We'll break it down. We talked about it a little bit today. Illinois played Michigan last week. Physical game, very physical game. And we know how Michigan brings it. We know how Brett Bielema brings it. And those two teams look very similar. Luke Altmaier, I think, was probably the difference in that game. Had Luke Altmaier been playing for Michigan, maybe Michigan wins that game 21-7, right?
Yeah.
Just a better
Illinois is fine with getting in a street fight with you.
Exactly. And the problem is that when they played Penn State and when they played Nebraska a little bit, you could notice a little bit of difference in speed on the field, and that's Penn State and Nebraska we're talking about. This is a different deal with the Ducks.
That's it, man. That is the thing in this matchup, bro. Is the speed. The speed differential is like ridiculous in this game. Illinois has definitely not seen anything like this. And
if you've watched past Brett Bielema teams, whether or not it's at Wisconsin or Arkansas, they're all physical, but like when they match up against a team that has athletes, it's not pretty.
No, it's not. It's not. And I know our everybody's boy, the Bear, Chris Felica, he'll have a little nugget out there this week, little bear bite about this far in the season when you've got 2 ranked teams and one of them's like favored by 3 touchdowns. There's another one that favors Oregon in that trend that to usually tell you just to lay it and laugh because there's
since 2010 17-7-1 against the spread.
Okay, there it is. You already got it. Hey, we don't need the Bear to give it out. We got you to give it out, bro. Let's go.
Yep.
So we got to come up with a name instead of bear bites. We got to come up with something for yours because you always got the nuggets.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I just think that that's the handicap in this game. is I know some people, again, people normally attract to underdogs and popular public underdogs. I'm sure Illinois, with a rank next to their name, they just beat a brand like Michigan. They covered against Penn State. They're going to be a team that people are going to want to back this week. Probably the public with getting that many points, but this isn't one that you should just lay it and forget it. Forget about it. Don't know that I'm going to do that just yet, but I do think that I like Altmaier, man. I like Luke Altmaier, and he's played really solid at the QB position this year for Illinois. And I do think there's a chance that he could make some plays for them to possibly keep them a little bit within this game. But I don't know, man. If you had to call it, would you take Oregon in the spread in the point and take?
I don't know, man. I know Altmaier played at Ole Miss, and he probably played and he's been in some raucous environments. But Austin's going to be a different thing. Although it's going to be 12:30 out there during the day, it's a different animal. But they. I mean, he can make some plays. We saw Will Howard, who obviously is a similar quarterback to Altmaier, probably a little better, but he lit up that secondary. And the problem is he's got so much better wide receivers and better weapons, and Illinois they don't have the talent to hang with teams like this.
No, they don't. And like we said a minute ago with A&M, they just recently had a common opponent, LSU and A&M, with Arkansas.
Oh yeah, Purdue.
Oregon could have trotted their B team out there and beat Purdue to death, and they just cruised to a 35-0 goose egg on the board. And Purdue hung 49 on Illinois. Now I know that was a 27-3 game, and it was a funky game, and Purdue made a run, but still, Purdue did that against them.
And I know college kids and all that. We talk about 18 to 24-year-olds. You never know what you're going to get week in, week out. So it's not like we're saying, yes, because of that common opponent, lay it all on Oregon. It's just something to look at because, as we've been known to see, especially last year when all the sign stealing stuff went on, coaches talk and they talk about what teams do well and what teams do bad and how you can maybe exploit them. And these coaches all have relationships with people on all these staffs, and they're going to find any way they can do that. And Dan Lanning is contacting guys and just figuring out, okay, how can we cruise to an easy victory over the Illini on Saturday, which I think they're going to. Like we said, we're not sure if we're going to be on the spread or not. If you want to bet it, -21. So 3 touchdowns is probably maybe the best number you're going to get. It might dip to 20.5 if you're lucky, but let's get to some more quick hitters, man. Can Vandy do it again?
No.
Texas going on the road at Vanderbilt, 4:15 Eastern on SEC Network. 19-point home underdogs again. They were 22-ish by the time it kicked off against Alabama.
Yep.
And we all saw that. And does anything you saw from Texas last week lead you to believe that Vandy can do it again?
No, because Vandy does not have Mykel Williams and Tavon Walker and the defensive lineman Warren Brinson that Georgia has. That was the difference in that game. Also, too, the fact that Vandy beat Bama, that I don't think that obviously Vandy's ranked right now. They're not sneaking up on Texas in this game at all. The way that Texas lost against Georgia, let's just call it what it is. Texas basically had their manhood tested.
They got punked.
Yeah, they did. They got punked. They stood in the middle of a ring and got, the first time Clubber Lang took out Rocky in the Rocky movies. That's what that was. That was a total ass whipping. I know the score wasn't just necessarily but that's what it was. And so I think that it just doesn't bode well for Vandy in this game. And as far as the styles go, Alabama doesn't have an Anthony Hill Jr., a middle linebacker like Texas does they can spy Diego Pavia with in the run game. Texas, their edge rushers and the defensive line is really good. Texas defensively against Georgia played well. And Texas's defensive front and defending an athletic quarterback this year, I think that fits what they want to do defensively. I think they're fine with doing that. I believe that like I said, Anthony Hill Jr. at middle linebacker and Trey Moore at defensive end, Colin Simmons at defensive end. They've got enough guys, I think, that can bottle up and handle Diego Pavia and keep him from going off. I don't, it took Vandy doing about everything possibly right on getting all those third downs that they got, the fourth downs, all that stuff to pull that upset at the end against Alabama. I just don't think they can do that, man, against Texas. And I think they're going to get a focused Texas team. I think that Quinn Ewers obviously will want to get back on track after what happened last week. I know a lot of people are making a big deal of the Arch Manning stuff. I am personally not going to talk about that at all. Quinn Ewers is their quarterback. And I also think that Texas's offensive line, the way they got punked, I think they won't make the same mistake with Sark as a play caller like that, and they won't do some of the things that Bama did. Texas is going to run the football more in this game. I think Texas's athletes overall on the perimeter are just too much. So I don't know about the spread, but Texas is going to win this game.
Yeah. 7:30 NBC, big game in Madison. Penn State going on the road, taking on the Badgers. Believe it or not, yeah, both teams still alive for the playoff. That's a common theme here with all these games.
Yep.
Historically, Wisconsin has been a tough out as a home underdog. They've only been a home underdog 14 times since 2001, but they are 10-4 against the spread. That's the best mark in the country for teams who have been home dogs since 2001. I mean, it's 23 year, but okay, let's talk about the game a little bit, right? Braden Locke has played admirably for Wisconsin.
Yep.
Surprise, surprise, they found another running back at Wisconsin. Walker just putting up 100-yard games the past two games, but let's think a little bit about who Wisconsin has done this against, right?
That's it.
They beat Rutgers. They beat Purdue. And who'd they beat last week, Lance? It was Northwestern.
Yeah.
Yes. When they played Alabama, again, that was kind of the game probably wouldn't have been much different if Braden Locke had gone through a whole week of reps and started, but Tyler Van Dyke goes down. Bama wins 42-10. You could see the noticeable difference on the field in the athlete and the speed and all that. USC, they actually started out pretty well, and I think USC ended the game on a 21 or 28-point run. Win by 17 when going away.
Yeah, USC had 29 first downs to Wisconsin's 13 first downs in that game and had about 500 total yards to Wisconsin's 286 total yards. So,
exactly.
Yeah.
Penn State coming into town, though, they had a bye week. I don't think they're going to get caught looking ahead to Ohio State, even though that is a big game. I think Wisconsin's going to have their attention. James Franklin will have their attention with this team. They are 6.5-point favorites on the road in Madison and Camp Randall. If the game's tight in the third quarter, jump around might send them over the edge. The Badgers could very well win this game, but I think Drew Aller's going to show up. I think, the last time we saw them was that USC game. The defense didn't look as crisp as they had in the past. I think this is a really big chance for Penn State's defense to really rebound against what is probably an overhyped Wisconsin offense over the past 3 games. I mean, who isn't putting up 52 against Purdue and who's not beating Northwestern by 20, right? So
yeah,
and Rutgers' defense is just kind of falling off. So I think Penn State goes in, and they're one I'm looking at right now, 6.5-point favorites. I'm leaning Penn State on that right now. Because I just think, everyone's going to say, trap game. That line might even dip a little more. But, trap game, they're going to look ahead to Ohio State. I don't think so. And I think just the pure talent, discrepancy between the two teams, I think Penn State gets it done.
Yeah, I'm leaning towards Penn State as well. I think that, is it Tawee Walker?
Yeah.
Tawee Walker has ran the football well for Wisconsin recently. But like you just said, the last time Penn State was on the field was 2 weeks ago at USC, and USC ran the football well against them. If you know anything about Penn State the last 2 or 3 years, last several years, they are stifling defensively against the run. So in the bye week, you work on things that, that you haven't done as well, try to improve on those. You got to think that's been a major point of emphasis for them these last 2 weeks, is to make sure they're buttoned up and their run fits and stopping the run, especially going up against this Wisconsin team, because that's what they do. They run the football. So I don't think, again, this is styles make fights, matchups, all of that. If Wisconsin were to win this game, this is totally and completely, again, the only thing I can think of in this matchup that I'm like, oh yeah, I like Wisconsin in that matchup. Wisconsin's pass defense is pretty solid, and Penn State is better in the passing game this year, but it's not like they're just lighting it up, throwing the football by any means this year. I mean, what's it? Tyler Warren, the tight end for Penn State.
I'm always excited to watch him.
Yeah, I mean, he's, again, like 17 catches for 8 zillion yards against USC, snapping the ball, catching touchdowns or whatever. But this is the definition of styles make fights, and I just think that Penn State running the football, Wisconsin's got not your typical Wisconsin defensive line, not your typical Wisconsin defensive front. I think Penn State can run the football really well with Katron Allen and Nick Singleton. I mean, Drew Aller has been better this year, been a little more efficient overall, throwing the ball. But I just think that Penn State's going to be able to stop the run. They're going to be able to run the football. And barring some crazy Camp Randall at night, jump around magic that you can see in college football, I think Penn State gets it done, and I think they cover. But it's not a best bet for me yet, but it may get there.
Yeah. Man, let's talk a little Friday Night Lights. We've been waiting for this matchup. Huge G5 matchup in the Mountain West. Boise State at UNLV at Allegiant Stadium. Boise State coming in as 3.5-point favorites. Everybody flipped out preseason. Maddox Madsen gets the start, gets the nod over Malachi Nelson, and like, what are we doing? What are we doing? It didn't matter because they've got the Heisman frontrunner and Ashton Jeanty. Everybody knows his name now. Everybody knows what he's done. Over 1,200 yards. He's on pace to do something that nobody's done in 30-something years, right? Mm-hmm. And on the other side of the ball, nobody remembers who Matthew Sluka is anymore because Haj Malik Williams has come in. He's averaging over 300 total yards per game that he started. Darn near beat Syracuse, who's a solid P4 team. And he's doing it all, man. He's leading them in passing. He's leading them in rushing. Ricky White, wide receiver, 46 catches already. So this is going to be a war. And but it's really tough for me to not see Boise State coming out on top here because they've owned this series in the past. I don't know how they're going to stop Ashton Jeanty on the ground. The dude, I mean, what he did against Oregon, was insane. Like, he does it against everybody. Plus, just playing at Raiders Stadium out there. I mean, they're gonna be lit for that one.
Yeah, they are. I like Boise in this game. I took him at -3 when it was at 3, so it's one of my best bets. Like, for the reasons you just said, I just don't think that anybody at that level. Now, UNLV is very solid. Got a good defensive-minded coach, but I mean, I'm looking at the last few games for UNLV. I mean, Oregon State's not very good offensively. 25 points for Oregon State, 34 points for Utah State, 44 points against Syracuse. Yeah, I think that Ashton Jeanty it's like you just said, he ran all over Oregon. He's running all over everybody. Yep. It's so demoralizing when you can't stop the other team from running the football. And I don't know how they're going to stop Boise. And you got to imagine, too, man, Jeanty on a primetime spot like this on a Friday night where a lot of people will be tuned in to watch this game because it's a good football game, number one, between two good teams. But there are going to be a lot of people who's going to be tuned in to watch him. Mm-hmm. And this is a chance for him with a lot of eyeballs on him on TV to show the Heisman voters he's the real deal. And you got to know that UNLV is going to be geared up to stop the run, which in turn I think could open up some big plays in the passing game for Boise. But this was another one. Last year, UNLV was in the Mountain West Championship game. It was kind of a trendy pick for a lot of people because I think that game was played in Vegas as well, the Mountain West Championship game last year. and Boise just beat the piss out of them. I don't think it's going to be that to that extent. I think it's going to be a good football game, but I think a close game. But I think Boise covers. Again, I took them at -3, so I like Boise in this game.
Yeah, I'm going to have my afternoon cup of coffee to stay up for that one, 10:30 here on the East Coast on CBS Sports Network. But next game, let's talk about a little Thursday night football. Depending on when you're listening to this, probably Thursday morning. This will be on tonight, 7:30, ESPN. And this could turn into one of the best games and one of the most exciting games of the week. It's Syracuse at Pitt in Heinz Field. Yes, I'll keep calling it Heinz Field. Pitt's favored by 6 currently. That's actually gone up from, I think, 3.5 when we did guess the spread on Sunday. And I just really like Syracuse in this. I think Pitt has been very fortunate. You and I talked about it.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of close games on both sides of the coin here for Syracuse and Pitt. I know they get the home field advantage, but man, I have been on Syracuse since the get-go, man. Since they hired Fran Brown, I loved that hire. I loved when they got Kyle McCord to transfer there. I love when they got to – you notice they got a lot of guys from Georgia in the transfer portal, obviously because of Fran Brown. You haven't heard of any arrests or anything or reckless driving coming out of Syracuse, New York lately. So there might be something there, but
they're not running around in Ferraris like they are in Athens. So they don't have that NIL money up there.
It's probably already snowing up in Syracuse for all we know. So, but yeah, the Kyle McCord's averaging 360 yards passing per game. He's got Trebor Pena. He's got Rondé Gadsden the second. They're a legit offense. Pitt's a legit offense too. I know Holstein at quarterback is solid. Like we said, with the close games, it's hard for me to think that either one of these teams is going to blow out the other one.
No, I mean, if you go by the numbers, both of these teams against every P4 opponent they've played, and including, I know UNLV is not a P4 team, but they're one of your best G5 teams when Syracuse played them. Both of these teams are playing everybody they play to one possession. They're all one-possession games. I mean, Pitt just played Cal 17-15, 38-34 against West Virginia, 28-27 against Cincinnati. Same thing with Syracuse. There are a lot of close games. So a 6-point line. Eli Holstein, who transferred from Alabama to Pitt, has played really well in this Cade Bell offense for Pitt. I think you're going to see some fireworks in this game for both of these quarterbacks, both playing well. I think this is another one of those situations where it could be who's got the ball last. I think with getting 6 points, I like Syracuse in this game. Getting 6. Are you taking Q's as a best bet?
I picked bet Syracuse earlier today. It's +6.5.
Okay, I got them at +6. So they're my I can't gonna spoil it now, but yeah, I've got Syracuse +6 as one of my best bets as well.
Okay. Next game, I think we might differ on a little bit. Washington at Indiana, noon, Big Ten Network, back on Saturday. IU -6.5 in the game. I saw someone tweet the other day, this might be the first time College Game Day has been to a place where the game is actually on a conference network. Like, it's not on NBC, not on ESPN, none of the major networks. It's on Big Ten Network. The disrespect they're showing to the reigning runner-ups and the current leader of the Big Ten Conference is just unbelievable. But
probably the last time something like that happened was when College Game Day went to James Madison last year with Kurt Signetti when they played Appalachian State. And
look what happened.
Appy State went into JMU and won.
Yep. I don't like that. I don't like to hear that. But Curtis Rourke, doubtful for the game. I think he was out. He's now doubtful. He had surgery on his thumb. And I think the prognosis actually turned out a lot better than they thought. So he probably won't play this game, but he could be back for the November 2nd game at Michigan State, which would be big. Taven Jackson came in last week for IU against Nebraska, albeit he came in when the game was pretty much already in hand, so not a lot of pressure there. He threw a couple of nice balls. He's very good with his legs, so I would imagine they'll drop some plays with his legs too. He's got some athletes to throw to, though. I mean, they've got the receivers, they've got the offense. I mean, the offense is the total package. With Taven Jackson and with Curtis Rourke, I think it's a legit top 5 offense in the country, probably. Maybe top 5. Defense is kind of where it's been an issue for them this year. Obviously, they proved that their defense is pretty good last week against Nebraska, but Will Rogers coming off a bye. You got Jonah Coleman at running back. I bet you, they've done it pretty much every game. They'll have Damon Williams coming in for some packages at quarterback. Jed Fish, obviously last time we saw them, they went on the road. They played another 9 a.m. body clock game at Iowa and lost by 24. So they're one to come out and redeem themselves. But game pick, I already take IU -6. I just think that Cignetti's going to have the guys prepared. I trust Kurt Cignetti with everything. I think Alabama probably should hire Kurt Cignetti over Kalen DeBoer.
Don't worry, man. There's some friends that have already texted and been like, "Man, I wish we had that Cignetti guy."
That Cignetti guy. He's still known by that Cignetti guy.
Yeah,
I can't even use his first and last name.
Coach Siggs.
Yeah.
This is. Again, man, this is where we're going to find out again with Coach Siggs. This is a big time spot here with. Can you handle prosperity? The whole world now propping you up. College game days coming to town. You just blew out the Big Red Machine and the Huskers in Nebraska and Matt Rule. And now you've got one of the better coaching staffs in the entire country that people aren't going to talk about in Jed Fish and Brendan Carroll, offensive coordinator, Brendan Carroll, Pete Carroll's son, and Bill Belichick's son, Steve Belichick, the defensive coordinator. Washington has 3 losses this year, and in all 3 losses, they literally outgained their opponent.
Mm-hmm.
Their last time out on the field, they had one of the more embarrassing losses that this coaching staff has probably ever had in their career at any stop that they've been at. And players that are on Washington's roster that have been there the last few years, by far their most embarrassing loss, where they lost 40-16 at Iowa. And they literally outgained Iowa. I don't know how that happened. But Will Rogers has like 18 touchdowns and only 2 interceptions on the year. He's been extremely efficient as well. They're very balanced on offense. Jonah Coleman, running back, transferred from Arizona, is averaging about 7 yards per carry on the year. So he will be the best tailback that Indiana has seen so far. No question, easily the best tailback they've seen so far. So you're 7-6, somewhere between a 6 to 7 point favorite, depending on where you're looking at, coming off a blowout win against Nebraska, getting this coaching staff from Washington off a bye with a solid veteran-laden quarterback and Will Rogers, who's played a lot of football in the SEC. They've already played against Michigan this year, been on the road in other games. This is, again, it'll be even more impressive, in my opinion, if Indiana goes out. I don't mean to go out and win by 20 or something like that. If Indiana comes off that game last week, off this prosperity, and beats Washington, that will impress me, if not more, than what they did in Nebraska last week. I don't have a pick in this game. The reason why Tyler said earlier that we may differ, if you made me pick it, I'd take the Cardinals sin and go against Siggs one more time. And would take Washington against the
last week going against them wasn't enough.
No, it wasn't. I would again. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to take Washington this week. Which the way things have gone, they'll probably win straight up. But if you made me pick the game, I would take Indiana to win the game, find a way to win. Washington will outgain Indiana and lose. And lose by field goal or lose 31-27, something like that.
Yeah. When Jed Fish has been an underdog of 7 or more points in his career, he's 13-6 against the spread.
Yeah.
So he's good underdog coach. Next game, BYU at UCF in the Bounce House, 3:30 on ESPN. Since 2005, UCF 9-3 against the spread at home when they're playing ranked opponents, including 7-0 with a single-digit spread in the game. The question is in this game, is this going to be the bounce house last year against Oklahoma State, or is it going to be this year against Colorado? We don't know. When you look at UCF's losses, they don't look as bad as they kind of would look at the beginning of the season. They lost to Florida. they lost to Colorado and they lost to Cincinnati. Both those two teams are playing each other, and the next game we're going to talk about, they're both 5-2. So both putting together respectable seasons. So I think it's kind of the way they looked. KJ Jefferson, obviously, we thought he was going to be a solid this year. I'm not even sure he's injured, man. I think he's just playing crappy. And Gus Malzahn is going with Ja'Cory Brown because both guys can run, but Ja'Cory Brown's got a quickness to him. And they racked up over 300 yards against Iowa State and a good Iowa State defense last week.
9 yards a carry.
RJ Harvey's going to be at it again this week against BYU. And you just got to think BYU, similar to Iowa State, similar to Miami, they've just been playing with their food a little too much. And one of these games, it's going to come back and bite them. And this might be it because the spread has gone from BYU -1.5 all the way to UCF -2 right now.
Yeah, well, one of my best bets this week, this was just, again, I do think UCF can run the football on BYU. UCF has ran the football just about everybody they've played. Somehow they didn't run the ball well against Colorado. I don't understand, again, how they didn't run the ball well in that game. But RJ Harvey and Ja'Cory Brown, they run the football well. That's just what they do. You know what you're going to get with this UCF team. Can BYU stop the run? I don't know. Last week, Oklahoma State, who's had trouble running the football all year, that's been one of those things that trying to figure out what's wrong with Oklahoma State with the defending Doak Walker Award winner and Ollie Gordon. And they ran the football well last week at BYU and did everything but win that game. And BYU had that big emotional win at home, come back win. Now they've got to go on the road to UCF and in the bounce house and try to defend that running game for UCF. I just got to be honest with you. Games like this, I just blindly take when a team is undefeated, ranked, all that stuff, and they're playing UCF, who's got like 4 losses on the year, and UCF's favored. All right, sure, yeah, I'll ride with the odds makers on that. I took UCF at -1 when it was at 1, so I got UCF -1. It's up to 2 now. That's one of my best bets is UCF -1. I'm going to take a shot at Malzahn and the Knights at home in the bounce house.
I love it, man. I'm going to see what the line does and see where it moves and everything. I'm not afraid to take them -2 or 2.5. So, but if it goes back down towards the pick 'em, then that'll be a play for me as well.
I remember you last year. You were on UCF in that game against Oklahoma State last year.
Yeah, just the typical spot games when you get to late October, early November. Teams, you just kind of start realizing more about teams. But last game we'll talk about was a team that we didn't know what we were going to get this year. We thought we might get the similar, result to last year, and that's Colorado. They're hosting Cincinnati this week in a big game that has a lot of Big 12 implications, and we didn't think we'd be saying that on October 23rd. And Colorado's favored by 5.5 right now. I was on Colorado last week, underdogs, +4 against Arizona. They went in and they just whooped tail again, man. Like I know we said we weren't going to talk about them anymore until they became a serious program, and it seems like they're rounding into being at least a serious team. I'm not sure about a program. We'll see what they do in the offseason, but they're a serious team to be reckoned with this year because their defense is taking it to another level in the past couple weeks. And this is a 10:15 kickoff. Dion loves those late kickoffs. He always complains about. But it's going to be one. It's a 5.5-point spread, so it's going to be close. I actually took Colorado again. I took them -3.5. It was one of my first bets of the week. I would still take them at 5.5 because I just think that they have more talent. You see Shadur, he's still slinging it, but he knows he doesn't have to do as much as he had to do at the beginning of this season and last season because his defense is actually stepping up for him. And, everybody underestimated the Pac-12 last year, right? We were on the Pac-12, and maybe the move to the Big 12 was good for Colorado. Obviously, it's a wacky conference this year, and that Pac-12 was not something we messed with last year, and those teams were good. And I know a lot of them moved over to the Big 12, but a team like Cincinnati, I just think they're going to have problems in Boulder at night.
Yeah, and I haven't bet it yet, but I'm probably going to get on board with you with Colorado here. Cincinnati's played solid football so far in the Big 12 this year. But is their wins in the Big 12 this year? I mean, they beat Houston, one of the worst teams in the Big 12. They did beat UCF at UCF. That was the first game that the freshman quarterback Curry Brown started for UCF. And then last week they got Arizona State with a backup quarterback against Arizona State. So they've had some fortune of who they played. The only decent team I would say that they played in the Big 12 was at Texas Tech, and they gave up 44 points to Guns Up at Texas Tech. So Shadur and that offense should be able to. I mean, Cincinnati hasn't seen anything like the receivers that they're going to see in this game and the skill players they're going to see in this game overall for Colorado. And again, Colorado is cooking right now. They're like pouring gasoline on a fire at the moment. Can they keep it rolling? I think they do. I will probably end up getting on board with Tyler. I just haven't gotten the year. Honestly, it's at 5.5 right now. If it gets to 6, that's fine. It's still a number I don't really care about, whatever. I'm just saying if it ticks down a little bit anymore, it probably won't. So the heck with it. Colorado minus 5.5. I'm in.
Love it.
I'll ride. Again, we're spraying the board, bro.
So, yeah, buddy.
I'm in.
Do it. Real quick before we get to upset alert, we're recording this on Wednesday night. Big Conference USA showdown going on in Kennesaw, Georgia, where Kennesaw State is up 24-17 against Liberty.
What has happened to your Flames, bro?
I said a week and a half ago they were cooked, man. I watched them play against FIU, went to overtime. It was embarrassing. They played one game in 32 days. Like, it's not their fault. They got the Appalachian State canceled. They had a bye in there. Like, they had one game in 32 days. So you're bound to have some rust, but you're 26.5 point favorites. I texted you guys today. I said, lock. 26.5 points for Kennesaw State is a lock. And
26.5, and they're losing right now. Unbelievable.
I mean, they're literally probably the worst team. I mean, they're the second worst power rated team to Kent State. Kennesaw State is in K Ford ratings.
Yikes.
And
that's rough.
Liberty's losing outright with 5 minutes to go. Yeah, and Kennesaw State's on Liberty 26. So we'll keep you updated as that game goes final here. But upset alert. You alluded to it earlier. I could tell you where you were going. I'm going to beat you to it. I'm going to put Pitt on upset alert.
Yeah.
I'm going to put Pitt on upset alert because I think that game has a chance to be wacky, and I could easily see Syracuse going in there tonight and winning that game. Also, I'm going to put Arkansas on upset alert.
Yeah.
Going to Mississippi State.
I match up with both of you. I match up on both of those with you, bro.
Yeah, Michael Van Buren has been playing well at quarterback. I know you said they got the freshman wide receiver out, but Jeff Levy's been coaching them up. They've been playing hard, and they're going to get one of these games down the stretch. Yep. I got a feeling that program's got too much pride. They're going to get one of these games down the stretch, and this might be it.
Well, I agree with you on both of those, and the other one that I'm going to put on upset alert is Indiana.
No.
I'm putting Indiana on upset alert. Do I want it to happen? No. Love Coach Siggs. Love this Hoosier team. Again, we're fans, dude, of the sport. I hope Indiana continues to win. But I just, man, again, this spot's tough. It'll impress. Again, I'll say it again. It'll impress me even more than what they did last week if they go and just win the game this week with a backup quarterback against this coaching staff and this team for Washington that is better than what their record shows. I think this is going to be a really good football game, and Washington has a chance. They're live. They have a chance to win this game.
Okay.
So, yeah, I'm putting the Hoosiers on upset alert, and I'm dead set, lockstep with you on the two that you gave out.
If IU wins by 25 again this week, I might drive 50 minutes down to Bloomington and go to Coach Siggs' office and tell him exactly what happened and see if he wants to come on the show.
Dude, that would be awesome. That'd be fantastic. We're going to talk about ratings. Oh,
yeah. All right, let's get the best bets. I've already mentioned I took Syracuse plus 6.5, Indiana minus 6, Colorado minus 3.5, and I mentioned the first game, LSU money line. I am on, I think we were both on, Ole Miss. I bet them today after Lance talked me into it, and I read some stuff of my own. I got Ole Miss minus 20. I'm thinking about Boise, thinking about Penn State. Actually, I'm thinking about Michigan State a little bit. That line is dipped all the way to plus 3.5. A lot of systems match up with Michigan State doing well in that game. Jonathan Smith, 16-7 against the spread as a road underdog of more than a field goal in his career. And he covers those games like over 6 points per game on average. So, again, it's a spot game for Michigan because they just got embarrassed to Illinois. But again, they're looking ahead for Oregon next week. Not that, and you just don't know the motivation that Michigan has right now. Like, it's not last year anymore. Like, and they're out of the running for pretty much everything. If they're not careful, they can lose a couple games here down the stretch, barely make a bowl. I mean, they got Michigan State right now. They got IU. They got Ohio State. I mean, they could, if they're not
They could lose all those games.
They could be looking at a 6-6 season. So
the only thing I'll disagree with you on is like the motivation part. The fact that it is Michigan State in a rivalry game.
But, I mean,
but yes, like I just don't know that they may not be good enough. Like Michigan State can absolutely play. Like I'm removing anything motivation wise out of it. Like I don't care how motivated they are. Like that's great if they're super motivated. I promise you, Michigan State's motivated as well. And
after that 49-0 whooping they took last year from them,
right? And so I don't know that Michigan is just so much better than Michigan State.
Yeah, I like the way Aiden Childs has looked over the past couple weeks, especially how he looked against that Iowa defense last week. He threw some good balls, and I watched a good bit of that game. So those are the best bets I got. I'll let you talk a little bit about the Ole Miss bet that we have, but give us your novel list of all those bets you got.
I was going to say I have to get out a ledger here for this one because we're spraying the board this week, folks. As of right now, we may have more on check us out on X on Saturday. We give them out Saturday morning. Definitely check out Tyler's. You might not want to check out mine because I've been struggling lately. But hey,
Lance's tweet's going to be one of those show more tweets because it's going to be over the 280 characters.
It might be. All right, starting out, we're going to go with we're going to row the boat this week. We're going to take old PJ Fleck and the Ghosts, the Minnesota Golden Gophers, laying 4 against Maryland at Minnesota. Minnesota's at home against Maryland. Maryland off that really just crazy comeback win, emotional win at home against USC. USC had that game in control, and then Maryland just went on a crazy run at the end. Minnesota is off a bye, so I want to take the Gophers -4 in that spot. Baylor -6. I loved it on Sunday when it was at 4.5 and did not expect the line to go. To be honest with you, I was like, 4.5, it's kind of a dead number. So I'm going to see if it gets to 4, see if it gets to 3, 3.5. By the time I looked at it, it was Baylor -6. So I locked it in then because I didn't want to get it up. I didn't want to go any higher. I thought it might go down again. Nope. Right now, Baylor's -7. So I got Baylor at -6. Oklahoma State's real, and I kind of personally feel like that was Oklahoma State's last stand of this year last week at BYU on that crazy Friday night game. They should have won that ball game, and I mean BYU had that crazy comeback. Baylor's playing a little bit better ball. They just thrashed Texas Tech. Offensively, Baylor's playing well right now, and I think Dave Aranda defensively can come up with a game plan enough to be able to cover that game at home for Baylor. So Baylor -6. I already gave out Penn State earlier, -6.5. So I'm taking Penn State -6.5 at Camp Randall. I love the matchup for the Nittany Lions there. Ole Miss -20, like Tyler talked about. If Oklahoma covers this game, it must be that they literally, when they fired Seth Luttrell on Sunday, the offensive coordinator, they just completely flushed everything they were doing on offense. But even then, Oklahoma right now, offensively, like their offensive line is horrible. They're one of the worst teams in the country offensively, period. But they're also one of the worst teams in the country at allowing tackles for a loss, pressures on the quarterback, sacks. They're not creating any push at all. And on the flip side of that, Ole Miss is one of the best teams in all of college football at creating havoc. They are in the backfield constantly. They're one of the best teams in the country defensively in about every category you could want to look at. They're really good against the run. They're really good against the pass. They're really good at creating tackles for a loss. They're really good in sacks. So, and then on the flip side of that, Jackson Dart and this Ole Miss offense has been something a little bit wrong with them this year. They have not, against the better competition, played as well as what you think they'd play. I just think it's a wrong place, wrong time. But Ole Miss coming off a bye, They're healthier. You got to imagine they want to get this offense rolling. So I know Oklahoma's defense is solid, but even their defense, man, at some point when you're on defense and your offense can't even get a freaking first down, you just eventually just kind of give in. Mm-hmm. And I just don't know how Oklahoma's offense is going to move the ball enough. Their defense is going to be on the field constantly. So I think Ole Miss covers the 20 in this spot. It's a big number, but I'll lay it with the hotty toddy. I already gave out UCF -1. I gave out Syracuse +6 earlier. I also agree with Tyler that Pitt's on upset alert and Syracuse can win the game straight up, but I'll take the points and take Syracuse +6. Boise -3 against UNLV. Gave that out earlier. I'm on Boise -3, and I said, screw it. I'm on Colorado -5 as well. So that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That is a record for what your boy here has given out on a Wednesday. We're not waiting till Saturday to throw some stuff on X. We're giving it to you folks here on the podcast that stuck around this long to check out the best bets.
And that list might grow by Saturday.
It will. It will. We'll have a couple more. You know, I might have a good conversation with old Doug Barton or something, and he may have a good little play that I might want to jump in on.
I love it. I love it, man. And I love college football. I know you love college football. I hope everyone listening loves college football as much as we do. We can't wait for this weekend, just like we can't wait for every other weekend. Not a huge, big brand name matchup like we had last week in prime time, but a lot of really, really solid matchups, 5 ranked matchups. It's going to be fun to watch. And we're heading into, November here. And we're heading into here in 12 days. We're going to get the first committee rankings, and we get to dissect those and see what they're going to value. And then we get to see the next week how it changes and they don't explain themselves. So it's going to be fun. And that's why we're bringing the extra episode during the month of November to you guys. So remember, next Monday, Wednesday, Friday, episodes coming out. We appreciate you guys sticking around for this long. Apple, Spotify, YouTube, Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, Instagram. Go follow us. Go subscribe. We appreciate it. And we'll see you guys next time.